Remind yourself that we live in a world of invisible energy that we all take for granted. Think of electricity, radio and television signals, microwaves, fax machines, cellular telephones. We know that we can send radio waves out into the atmosphere, bounce them off satellites, scramble and unscramble them, and receive information from the waves. As we increase the frequency of these waves of energy, we can send them to distant planets and perhaps, all the way to God and back. Isn't that what prayer is when you get right down to it? An invisible signal sent between your mind field and the universal mind field, which you must be connected to. Research has shown that people who pray and are prayed for have higher incidences of recovery. Ponder this idea of faster vibrations being associated with spirit, and spirit being the source of all problem solving. When you live persistently and permanently in the lower vibrational frequencies of material consciousness, you are not able to participate in the realm of transcendent ideas, insight, knowing, and pure creativity. Disease frequencies can invade your body when you live in a continual non-spiritual state of being angry, fearful, envious, judgmental, and worried. These lower vibrations are inherent in virtually all of the life circumstances that we call problems. The emotional states of fear, worry, anger, envy, greed, jealousy, guilt, and hatred are the lower frequency reactions that we implement in response to the circumstances and events of our lives. It is only when you elect to move beyond those slower, lower energy vibrations that you will eliminate problems that are associated with the material world of the senses. As you explore the presence of spirit in your life as a faster, more complex energy frequency, consider that the highest levels of the mind contain the capacities of insight, imagination, creativity, and spiritual consciousness. The mind is a higher construct, and it can be thought of as infinite. It is your mind, which indeed may be separate from your brain, that you are going to train to move at a faster frequency so as to bring spiritual solutions to your problems. Think about what it is like to be around people who seem to possess these highest capacities of the mind. The person of deep insight who touches your soul with his words and ignites feelings of love and appreciation is vibrating at a faster energy frequency. Deep insights do not have to be in esoteric fields such as quantum physics. I recall talking with a professional football player who had great insight in how to construct defenses against passing formations. I knew that he was experiencing life in his realm from a higher frequency. People who know how to be peaceful and loving regardless of the outer circumstances appear to have greater insight into how to live their daily life. They can have a profound effect on those whom they encounter. I've always loved the way a great Indian saint of the 19th and early 20th centuries responded to his devotees when they asked him how they could rid themselves of their lower energies. In the springtime, Vivekananda replied, observe the blossoms on the fruit trees. The blossoms vanish of themselves as the fruit grows. So too will the lower self vanish as the divine grows within you. The apples do not get into a deep conflict with the blossoms that are in their designated space on the branches of the tree. There is no anger, no battle between the fruit and its blossoms. As the fruit grows, the blossoms disappear. Everything in this material world of form is in a constant state of change and ultimately will be gone. But there is also the world of the changeless that we call God. And it is this unchanging spirit that will transform those things that you call problems. The cast of characters that create the illusory problems include fear, worry, guilt, vanity, anger, envy, greed, gossip, hypocrisy, hate, shame, jealousy, and particularly self-centeredness. You know when they are present, and you know how you feel when you allow them in your daily life. This leads us to the final awareness, and that is that you can negotiate the presence of factors in your life to increase your frequency of vibrations. It is the fear of being divine that most often interferes with bringing spiritual energies into one's life. In order to be able to commune with the divine, you must be tuned into that frequency. You cannot tune into an FM radio station while you have the setting on AM. Certainly the higher frequencies of FM are out there playing away, but if you're not tuned into them, you will conclude that they're unavailable. When you concentrate on these ways of being in your life, you begin the process of changing from one energy form to another. And you discontinue giving energy to the things you don't want or believe in your own heart. A spiritual solution truly awaits everything you will ever think of as a problem.
There is a sacred illusion that has governed the human mind for thousands of years, an illusion that God is somewhere else out there, above the clouds, hidden in holy books, locked behind rituals, or found only in the presence of saints and prophets. We were taught to look up, to kneel down, to chase something grand and far away. But what if the greatest secret of all, the secret whispered in every ancient text, the truth behind every miracle, is that God has never been outside of you? Not for a single breath, not for a single heartbeat. God is not above you. God is not around you. God is not hiding in a temple or buried in the sand. God is not an entity floating in the heavens, counting your sins or judging your failures. God is not a being. God is a presence, a vibration, a frequency, an energy. And that energy lives inside of you. It pulses in your chest, not just as a heartbeat, but as a rhythm of cosmic intelligence. It rises with the sun through your thoughts. It flows with your breath as inspiration. It sings in your silence and whispers in your intuition. It is the light behind your eyes, the warmth behind your love, the stillness behind your peace. You don't have to go anywhere to find it. You only have to remember, you have never been separate. You've only believed that you were. We were born into a world that confused form with truth. We were told we were bodies. We were told we were names, histories, roles, genders, religions, nationalities. We were given identities to wear like masks in a theater. But behind every mask is the same light, the same essence, the same eternal current of being that has no label, no boundary, no limitation. You are not a body with a soul. You are a soul having a brief, sacred, passing experience in a body. And that soul, your soul, is not disconnected from God. It is God. Not the entirety, but the expression, the drop that contains the whole ocean, the flame that reveals the nature of fire. You are the divine, individualized. And if that is true, and it is, then everything about your life begins to change. Because no longer do you search for peace outside of yourself. You no longer chase love from others like a beggar. You no longer strive to be good enough, holy enough, worthy enough. You realize that you already are. Because how can that which is divine be unworthy? Your worth is not negotiable. It is not determined by your past. It is not reduced by your mistakes. You are not here to earn divinity. You are here to express it, to remember it, to embody it. When Jesus said the kingdom of heaven is within you, he wasn't being poetic. He was describing a metaphysical reality, that the infinite lives in the finite, that the source is not out of reach, that the door to heaven swings open inward. The great mystics of every age have known this. Rumi wrote, "I searched for God and found only myself. I searched for myself and found only God." Lao Tzu said, "Knowing others is wisdom, knowing yourself is enlightenment." The Upanishads tell us, you are that. The Bhagavad Gita echoes, the self is the friend of the self. Even science, if you look closely, is beginning to whisper this truth, that consciousness is not an accident, but the ground of all being. And so the invitation of your life is not to find God. It is to remove everything that blocks your awareness of God within you. The ego is the veil. The past is the noise. The story is the distraction. But the truth has always been here, still, silent, waiting. Like the sun behind the clouds, it doesn't argue, it doesn't force, it doesn't punish. It simply waits for your willingness to remember who you really are. And who are you? You are not your name. You are not your job. You are not your resume. You are not your trauma. You are not your bank account. You are not your followers, your likes, your clothes, your failures, or your successes. You are not the story others wrote for you. You are not the story you wrote to survive. You are the awareness behind the story. the still presence watching the movie of your life unfold. You are not the storm, you are the sky that holds it. You are not the pain, you are the presence it passes through. You are not the fear, you are the faith it tries to hide. You are not your ego, you are not your wound, you are not your past. You are the divine energy expressing itself through this temporary costume of form. And once you remember this, not just intellectually, but spiritually, cellularly, everything shifts. You stop looking for validation. You stop playing roles. You stop performing for love. You stop carrying guilt like a cross on your back. You stop needing to be fixed because you realize you were never broken. Your healing does not begin when the world changes. It begins when your perception changes. When you stop seeing yourself as separate from the source of life and begin to live as if you are one with it. Because there is no place you can go where God is not. Not because God is everywhere, but because everywhere is in God. Because existence itself is God in motion, love in form, spirit in rhythm. And your soul is a thread in that vast, endless tapestry of being. And this means that your life is not random, your pain is not pointless, your existence is not small. It means that the breath you are taking right now is holy. The moment you are in right now is sacred. The body you inhabit is a temple of energy, vibrating with ancient intelligence. You don't need to wait to die to return to God. You only need to awaken to the fact that you never left. Heaven is not a location, heaven is a level of awareness, and hell is not punishment. Hell is the illusion of separation. It is living as if you are alone, as if you are unloved, as if you are lost, but you are none of those things. You are found, you are held, you are guided, you are loved beyond comprehension, not because of what you do, but because of what you are. You are light wrapped in skin. You are infinity in motion. You are God, dreaming of being human for a little while. And when you awaken to this truth, forgiveness becomes easy because you recognize that the one you're forgiving is also the divine in disguise. Compassion becomes natural because every person you meet is you in another form. Love becomes unconditional because it's no longer a transaction, it's a transmission. And peace becomes your default because nothing can disturb the stillness of the soul that knows it is one with the all. So the next time you look in the mirror, don't just see a face, see the infinite gazing back at itself. The next time you feel alone, place your hand on your heart and feel the presence that has never left. The next time you pray, don't send your words into the sky. Listen for the answer rising from within. You are not trying to become divine. You are remembering that you already are. And this remembrance, this return, is the beginning of true freedom. You don't need to fight for what already belongs to you. You don't need to beg for what you already are. And you don't need to wait for someone else to awaken. First, you are the awakening. You are the permission slip. You are the spark that lights the fire of remembrance in others, just by being who you truly are. When you walk into a room fully grounded in your divine essence, you don't need to say a word. Your presence becomes the sermon. Your peace becomes the teaching. Your authenticity becomes the miracle. Because when you remember that God is not outside of you, you stop chasing and start radiating. You stop searching and start serving. You stop trying to become and you begin to be. You begin to live like the lotus rooted in the mud, but blooming in the light. You begin to live like the sun, not asking the world for permission to shine. You begin to live like the ocean, deep, powerful, and undisturbed by the surface waves. This is not about religion. This is about revelation. This is not about dogma. This is about direct experience. You don't need a middleman to access the divine. You only need stillness. You only need silence. You only need the courage to sit with yourself until the noise fades and the truth rises. And what is that truth? That you are not alone. You never were. That everything you've been searching for, love, peace, worth, wholeness, is already within you. That God is not a being in the sky. God is the being within all beings. The eternal I am that speaks through your breath, moves through your hands, sees through your eyes. When you hold a newborn child and feel your heart crack open with wonder, that's God. When you stand in nature and feel awe wash over you like a baptism, that's God. When you forgive someone who never said sorry and feel the chains break in your chest, that's God. When you sit in the silence of your own soul and feel the warmth of presence, that is God. God is not something you understand. God is something you remember. And every moment of your life has been guiding you back to that remembrance, even the painful ones, especially the painful ones. Because pain is often the chisel that cracks the shell of illusion. Suffering is the wake-up call. Rock bottom is often the beginning of real clarity. We don't wake up because life is perfect. We wake up because we realize perfection was never the goal. Presence is. Peace is. Truth is. And truth is this: you are not separate. You were never cast out. You were never abandoned. You only forgot who you are, and now you are remembering. The spiritual path is not a journey to someplace new. It is the return to where you've always been, beneath the noise, beneath the story, beneath the roles. It is peeling back the layers of identity until only presence remains, until only love remains, until only God remains. And when you touch that space, when you live from that space, you become a vessel, a living temple. Not a preacher of truth, but a presence of truth. And the world does not need more preachers. It needs more presence. It needs more people who have remembered who they are and live accordingly with gentleness, with power, with purpose, with peace. You were not put here to suffer through life hoping for a reward in the afterlife. You were not sent here to prove your worth or earn your salvation. You were born to express divinity in form, to create, to heal, to love, to serve, to awaken. You are the eyes through which the universe sees itself. You are the hands through which love touches the world. You are the voice through which truth sings. And the more you align with that awareness, the more your life begins to reflect it. Not because you manipulate circumstances, but because you change your vibrational point of origin. You stop operating from fear and start operating from faith. You stop reacting from ego and start responding from essence. You stop surviving and begin thriving. This is the alchemy of awakening. When you stop seeking God as something external and begin realizing that every breath is a prayer, every moment is sacred, and every being is divine, your life becomes a living meditation. You find the sacred in the ordinary. You hear the infinite in the silence. You see the face of God in the mirror, not out of arrogance, but out of awe. And this is what the world needs now, not more beliefs, but more beings. Not more ideas, but more embodiment. Not more preaching, but more presence. A planet full of awakened souls who no longer search for light outside, but choose to become the light inside. Because when you light up from within, you give others permission to remember their own flame. When you walk as divinity embodied, you heal without speaking. When you love from your center, you transform the atmosphere around you. And that love, that God energy, has no limits. It is not reserved for saints and sages. It is the birthright of every soul. It is the essence of every child, every stranger, every enemy. There is no one who is not divine. There is only consciousness that has forgotten itself. And when you meet someone who has forgotten, your role is not to judge, your role is to remind. To remind by your presence, to remind by your compassion, to remind by your peace. Because the moment you see God in another, you activate the God in them. The moment you forgive, you invite another into their own freedom. The moment you speak truth without fear, you become a lighthouse in the fog. And the fog is thick right now. The world is noisy. The world is afraid. The world has built a shrine to the ego and forgotten the altar of the soul. But even in this darkness, The light within has not dimmed. It only waits for your awareness to return. So come home to yourself. Come home to the truth that has always been waiting beneath your breath. You are not missing. You are not flawed. You are not behind. You are not unworthy. You are divine. You are radiant. You are the energy of God dancing in human form. You don't need to chase enlightenment. You need to embody what you already are. So breathe, not just to survive, but to remember. Breathe in your wholeness. Breathe in your innocence. Breathe in your connection to all that is. And when the world tries to distract you, return to this breath. Return to this moment. Return to the energy that beats your heart and births the stars, because that energy is you. You are the temple and the flame. You are the question and the answer. You are the seeker and the source. And when you live from this knowing, life becomes a sacred flow. Challenges become opportunities to deepen your truth. Loss becomes a portal into love. Conflict becomes a classroom for compassion. Every experience becomes a step in your return to the truth that God is not outside of you. God is not in the sky waiting for you to be perfect. God is not a judge watching you through a lens of sin. God is the breath inside your breath, the stillness behind your thoughts, the love that you feel when all the noise fades. You are not separate. You never were. You just forgot. And now you are remembering. And in that remembering, you are reborn. There comes a moment in every soul's journey when the search loses its meaning, not because the search failed, but because the search was always a mirror leading inward. The maps you followed, the teachings you clung to, the gurus you revered, the rituals you performed, all of them were stepping stones, sacred, yes, but not destinations. They were never meant to lead you to something outside of you, but to bring you back to the holy stillness within. The silent sanctuary, where nothing is missing and no part of you is exiled. This moment, this breath, is your arrival. Not in time, but in truth. When you release the idea that you must become something more to be worthy of the divine, you enter the dimension of being. And being is not passive. Being is not empty. Being is a cosmic radiance. It is a living alignment. It is the holy reverence that comes when you stand in your center without effort, without masks, without needing to prove your light to a world that's forgotten its own. You don't become divine by reaching upward. You become divine by sinking inward. And as you do, you realize that stillness is not the absence of noise. It is the presence of God. It is the space from which all miracles arise, the field where form and formlessness meet. In that space, you remember that you are not here to master life like a test. You are here to merge with it like a dance, to move in rhythm with the intelligence that breathes stars into existence and still takes the time to open a flower. There is no arrogance in this knowing, only awe, only humility, only the peace that comes when you stop trying to contain the infinite within your mind and instead allow your heart to become its home. For the ego seeks to grasp, the soul seeks to surrender. The ego builds identity out of pain, out of story, out of past. The soul simply is unburdened, eternal, whole. And every time you choose presence over performance, truth over illusion, love over defense, you dissolve another layer of separation and step more fully into the light that has always been waiting. You don't need to heal yourself into worthiness. You only need to remember that the light you long for is not something to earn, it is something to uncover. And as you uncover it, something begins to shift, not just within you, but around you. The world starts responding differently. Not because the outer world changed, but because your inner signal did. Like a radio that finally tunes to the right frequency, you begin to hear a different song, a quieter song, a truer one. You begin to recognize guidance in what once felt random. You begin to feel supported in ways that defy logic. You begin to trust life, not because it always makes sense, but because you no longer need it to. You begin to understand that the energy that created this universe, the energy that shaped galaxies, composed the laws of nature, painted the skies with sunsets, and orchestrated the tides, is not distant from you. It flows through you. It animates you. It breathes you. And when you live from this awareness, your actions become expressions of love instead of fear. Your relationships become altars of growth instead of battlegrounds of control. Your words become vessels of truth instead of weapons of validation. This is what it means to live as the soul and not as the mask. This is what it means to walk the earth as divinity incarnate. You no longer see others as threats or strangers, but as reflections, sacred echoes, each one offering you the chance to practice remembrance. And the more you remember, the more you soften. The more you soften, the more you heal. And the more you heal, the more others heal just by being in your field. This is the quiet revolution of awakened presence. It changes the world not through force, but through frequency. And this frequency is not loud, it's not desperate, it's not defensive, it's gentle, like the light that enters a room without knocking, like the wind that moves the trees without needing to be seen, like love that simply loves, without agenda, without demand, without needing to be returned. This is how the divine works, not as a ruler, but as a presence, not as a command, but as a current. And the more you surrender to this current, the more your life becomes a river instead of a struggle. Not without pain, not without challenge, but with an unshakable foundation of peace that whispers, even in the storm, you are not alone. The storm does not mean you are forsaken. The wound does not mean you are broken. The doubt does not mean you have failed. It means you are growing. It means the veil is thinning. It means you are being called to remember, again, not in concept, but in embodiment. Not just to know that God is within, but to live as though it were unmistakably true. To live as though the breath you take is divine intelligence entering your body. To live as though every act of kindness is a prayer in motion. To live as though your very presence is a sanctuary where others remember their light. This is not spiritual idealism. This is radical realism, to see beyond the illusion of fear and touch the deeper truth of love that holds it all. Because what is God, if not love itself? Not the fragile love that says, only if you earn it. Not the conditional love that keeps score. Not the fleeting love that changes with behavior, but the eternal, boundless, all-pervading love that simply is. The love that has no opposite. The love that includes every shadow. The love that redeems without punishment. The love that burns away the illusion of separation with a single glance. And you are here to be the mirror of that love. Not in perfection, but in presence. Not by trying to become it, but by removing everything that blocks it. Every time you let go of judgment, you make room for that love. Every time you forgive yourself, you open the window to that love. Every time you choose compassion over condemnation, you become a vessel for that love. Not just for others, but for yourself. Because you too are worthy of the grace you give so easily to others. You too are worthy of returning home to yourself, not someday, not when you're better, but now. Now, when you are still tangled in your questions. Now, when you are still healing your wounds. Now, when the light inside is a flicker instead of a flame, that flicker is enough. That breath is enough. That moment of truth is enough to begin again. And beginning again is the most spiritual act there is. Because every moment offers the possibility of awakening. Every moment is holy ground when you walk it with awareness. And every time you choose to remember, even for a second, that God is not outside of you, the veil thins a little more. Until one day, you stop looking for the divine and you simply become it. There is a sacred humility that descends upon the soul when it no longer needs to shine, not because it doubts its light, but because it has become the light. This is not a performance. This is not the ego's idea of enlightenment. This is the quiet authority of one who has stopped seeking approval and started walking in alignment. A person who no longer needs the world to recognize their divinity because they have already recognized it within. This is the true birth of power, not control, not domination, not force, but alignment. Power that flows without resistance, power that heals without effort, power that liberates without preaching. You do not need to argue with darkness. You only need to turn on the light. And the light within you does not flicker with the opinion of others. It does not waver in the face of rejection. It does not vanish when things fall apart, because it is not built on circumstance. It is built on truth, eternal truth, the kind that existed before your story began and will remain long after your story ends. And this is what ego can never understand, that it is not your job to become something more, but to unbecome all that is false. Not to gather more things, more achievements, more spiritual credentials, but to surrender, to shed, to simplify, to become so empty of illusion that only truth remains. The ego resists this. It clings, it calculates, it compares, it builds altars to its own identity. But no altar built by the ego can contain the presence of the divine. God is not a possession. God is not a trophy for the enlightened. God is not a point to be proven. God is the breath between your thoughts, the peace underneath your pain, the space that remains when all self-concepts dissolve. You find it not by becoming more, but by becoming still. And in that stillness, you begin to see clearly. You begin to see how much of your suffering came not from life itself, but from your resistance to it, from believing the lie that life was against you, that you were unworthy, that you had to earn love, prove worth, fight for peace. But peace was never a destination. It was always your nature. Love was never a reward. It was always your essence. And God was never out there. God was always the witness, the seer, the still presence within. As this truth anchors deeper, your relationship with life itself transforms. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And begin asking, what part of me is ready to be healed through this? You stop resisting discomfort and begin welcoming it as the doorway to a deeper awareness. You stop fearing loss and begin recognizing every ending as an initiation into expansion. Nothing is wasted when you see through the eyes of the soul. Even your heartbreak becomes holy. Even your failures become fuel. Even your loneliness becomes a sacred invitation, not to fill the void, but to become intimate with it, to rest in it, to realize that beneath the loneliness is longing, and beneath the longing is love, not the love that comes and goes, but the love that you are. You are not the absence looking for completion. You are the completeness rediscovering itself through this temporary form. And so you begin to live differently, not with the frantic pace of the mind, but with the graceful rhythm of the soul. You begin to trust in timing, to surrender to process, to move not from fear, but from deep inner resonance. You say no, not to reject, but to honor alignment. You say yes, not to please, but to follow joy. You walk away not to escape, but to return to yourself. And in doing so, you begin to see the world not as a battlefield, but as a reflection. Not as a place to conquer, but as a mirror to awaken you. Every interaction becomes a chance to remember. Every trigger becomes a chance to release. Every breath becomes a chance to return home. And what is home? Home is the place within you that needs no validation. Home is the truth that has no opposite. Home is not somewhere you arrive. Home is where you live when you are no longer pretending to be anything but what you are, a spark of the divine wrapped in human form, here for a blink of eternity to remember what cannot be forgotten. You are not here to suffer. You are here to wake up. You are here to love, not as a strategy, but as a state of being. You are here to touch the fabric of life with reverence, to speak with sincerity, to walk with integrity, to listen deeply, and to give freely from the well of your soul. And in doing so, you become what the world has forgotten, a living presence of the sacred. You become the prayer. You become the temple. You become the embodiment of what the scriptures tried to describe. Because the greatest scripture is not in a book. It is written in your being. It is etched in your stillness. It is spoken in your silence. And in that silence, you know not with the mind, but with the soul, that there is nothing left to seek. There is only this moment and the divine pulse that animates it. You are not becoming divine. You are remembering that you never stopped being it. And that remembering is enough to change everything. There is a moment, quiet, unannounced, when all seeking falls away, not because the world has changed, but because you have remembered what the world forgot. You no longer stand at the edge of the ocean asking it to show itself. You simply step in, you merge, you dissolve the illusion of separation and become one with the current. This is what it means to return to God, not to a skybound deity, but to the source that has always been flowing in your breath, rising in your intuition, beating in the very center of your chest. And in this return, you discover what cannot be taught, that love is not something you give, receive, or find. Love is what you are. You were not sent here to search for it. You were sent here to embody it. And when you embody love, not the fragile imitation born of fear and control, but the love that includes every part of you, even the broken places, you become a miracle in motion. You become the kind of presence that doesn't need to speak in order to teach. You simply are. And your being reminds others of what they've always been. You walk differently now, not in haste, but in grace. You listen differently now, not to answer, but to feel. You speak differently now, not to impress, but to align. You live not from a desperate desire to prove your worth, but from a quiet knowing that you are the breath of God in human form. There is nothing to defend. There is nothing to fix. There is only this presence unshaken, unconditioned, and untouched by the storms of the mind. You have not arrived at this place through perfection. You arrived through surrender, through the falling away of every illusion that told you God was separate from your breath, from your body, from your being. You are not here to rise above your humanity. You are here to bring divinity into it, into the chaos, into the relationships, into the heartbreak, the joy, the tension, the ordinary moment, because that is where God lives. Not just in the mountaintops and temples, but in the mundane, in the unseen, in the imperfect. And you are the sacred bridge. You are the place where heaven and earth meet. Not someday, now, in this breath, in this body, in this life. So stop waiting for a sign. You are the sign. Stop waiting for permission. You are the permission. Stop waiting for someone to save you. You are the remembering that saves the world. Not through might, not through noise, but through presence, through peace, through the quiet, unwavering embodiment of the truth that has no opposite, that God has never been outside, that God is not in the sky, that God is not in some distant realm waiting for your perfection. God is here. God is now. God is within your choices, within your silence, within the love you extend when no one is watching, within the courage to forgive when the world says hate, within the softening when your ego wants to harden, within the breath you take when you choose to return to the stillness that has always held you. You don't need to transcend the world. You need to infuse it with your light. Let the divine radiate through your laughter, through your tears, through your vulnerability and truth. Let it pour through your presence like a sacred current. Let it touch every room you enter, not because you're trying, but because you're finally being who you are. You are not a seeker anymore. You are a rememberer. And the memory is no longer distant. It is here. It is now. It is you. So walk gently, boldly, truthfully. Let your life be your prayer. Let your breath be your altar. Let your love be your message. And when the world forgets, and it will be the one who remembers, Remember that every person is carrying the same spark, even if they have buried it. Remember that every conflict is a call for love, not for war. Remember that your past is not a prison, but a portal. Remember that this moment, yes, this very one, is sacred. You are not here by accident. You are not made of mistakes. You are made of stars, of breath, of ancient light. And when you die, and you will not meet God. You will dissolve into God. You will return to what you never left. But until that day, let every step you take be a celebration of the truth you've remembered. That God is not outside. It's the energy inside. And it always has been. And it always will be. Now breathe. Smile. You are home. You are free. You are divine. There is a moment when the soul becomes still. A moment when the noise of the world softens just enough for something ancient and familiar to be heard again. A whisper, like wind brushing across the eternal, calling you home. Not to a place, not to a religion, but to yourself. And in that sacred stillness, a truth emerges that changes everything. God does not test you, life reflects you. The clouds in the sky are not responsible for the sun's light, nor can they extinguish it. They only appear to cover it. And so too with the experiences of your life. They are not judgments from a distant God who watches you from afar and issues tests to prove your worth. No. Life is not a cosmic classroom where God plays the role of examiner, and you are the trembling student hoping to pass. Life is a mirror, and you are the artist painting what you believe onto its surface. The divine does not give you hardship as punishment. The divine is not some cruel overseer tallying your failures and rewarding your pain with trials. The divine is pure love, unconditional and ever-present, and what you meet in the world is not divine wrath, but your own reflection, filtered through your beliefs, your wounds, your thoughts, and your identity. You were never being tested. You were being shown. Over and over again. Not for the sake of suffering, but for the sake of seeing. The circumstances you attract, the people who appear, the pain you face, they are not punishments, they are projections. They are the echoes of your inner landscape made visible. Life is not something that happens to you, it is something that flows from you. You are not the effect, you are the cause. And when you understand this, not just in your mind, but in your bones, something begins to shift. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what within me is ready to be revealed, healed, and released? This is not blame, this is liberation. Because if life is reflecting you, then nothing is truly against you. If life mirrors your energy, your expectations, your self-concept, then you are never powerless. You are profoundly free. Free to choose again, free to see again, free to remember who you truly are, beneath the conditioned thoughts, beneath the childhood stories, beneath the societal masks. You are not here to be tested. You are here to awaken. The idea that God tests you comes from fear. It comes from the wounded child inside you that learned to equate love with performance, acceptance with suffering. It comes from generations of conditioning taught to revere a God of judgment rather than a God of love. But God is not watching you, God is within you. And not just within you as your breath, as your being, as your every sacred step through this human experience. The divine is not outside, waiting to reward or condemn. The divine is the source of your consciousness, the silent space between your thoughts, the formless awareness witnessing the play of your life. God does not sit on a throne in the clouds, handing out suffering like lessons. No. The presence of God is like the sky, vast, unshakable, and always there, no matter the storm. Life reflects your storm, not God's will. When you carry unworthiness in your heart, life will echo it through rejection. When you believe you are alone, life will mirror it through abandonment. When you fear you are not enough, life will paint it in every face that fails to see your worth. But this is not a test, it is a revelation. It is the universe holding up a mirror and whispering, look, not to judge, but to free. Because you cannot change what you do not see. And life in its infinite love is showing you all that stands between you and your divine self. Not to harm you, but to heal you. If a child falls while learning to walk, do you say the floor is testing him? Of course not. You recognize it as part of growth. And the same is true of you. Life does not test you, it teaches you. Not through punishment, but through patterns. Not through suffering, but through reflection. Everything in your life is feedback, not verdict. And yet, how often we mistake the mirror for the cause. We look at the reflection, the pain, the heartbreak, the failure, and we cry out to the heavens, why me? But the real question is, what is this showing me? Not what did I do wrong, but what is ready to be undone. There are no enemies in your life story, only mirrors. And some of them are sharp, some of them hurt, some of them shatter the illusions you've clung to for years. But even these are not there to break you. They are there to awaken you to the truth. You are not the story. You are not the wound. You are not the identity formed in fear. You are the awareness behind it all. You are the ocean, not the wave. And when you remember this, not just intellectually, but spiritually, you stop fearing what shows up. You start welcoming it as a messenger. Even the painful parts, even the losses, even the betrayals. Because now you know they are not tests from God. They are reflections of what is seeking transformation within. The world outside will always echo the world inside. You cannot plant seeds of fear and harvest peace. You cannot dwell in lack and expect abundance to flow. You cannot carry resentment and expect love to bloom. But you can choose again, and that is your power. You were made in the image of God, and that means not an image of form, but an image of essence, of creation, of intention, of divine authorship. And authors are not at the mercy of their story. They shape it. So the question is no longer, why is this happening to me? But what story am I writing with my thoughts, with my beliefs, with the vibration I carry into each moment? This is not about shame. This is not about blame. This is about awakening to the truth of your spiritual authorship. You cannot control every event, no, but you can transform the energy you bring to it, and by doing so, you shift what it reflects back. If you want the world to reflect peace, be peace. If you want the world to reflect love, be love. If you want the world to reflect abundance, live from gratitude, not grasping. If you want the world to reflect wholeness, stop seeing yourself as broken. Because the world is not testing your strength, it is showing you where you forgot your strength. The world is not punishing your choices, it is unveiling the beliefs behind them. And those beliefs are not you. They were given to you, often unconsciously, often in pain, but you do not have to keep them. You can return them like an old costume that no longer fits the light that now radiates from within. You are not your fear. You are not your failure. You are not your family's limitations. You are not your history. You are the light that sees all of it and still chooses love. And that love is your divine inheritance. Not because you earned it, but because you are it. Let go of the idea that you must earn God's favor. You cannot earn what is already yours. You can only remember. You can only return. Life is not a test you must pass to be worthy of love. Life is a reflection inviting you to see where you stopped loving yourself so you can return to it fully, fiercely, unapologetically. Because when you return to love, you return to God. Not as something separate, but as something essential, something eternal, something that has always been the truth of you. The light was never gone. You just forgot it was inside you. You were not sent here to suffer through divine experiments. You were not tossed into life as a subject in some celestial laboratory to be examined, graded, or judged. That is the projection of a mind that still believes in separation. That is the voice of ego disguised as humility. The voice that says, I am small and the universe is vast and cruel. But the truth is this: the universe is not against you. The universe is in you. And it responds not to your words, not to your fears, not to your begging. It responds to your essence. It reflects your vibration like a mirror reflects your image. It doesn't decide what to reflect, it simply shows what is already there. And so when life seems cruel, ask gently, what am I holding that hurts so deeply to be seen? When life is silent, ask, what truth within me have I ignored for too long? When patterns repeat, ask, what in me has not yet been met with love? Because the external world is the outpicturing of your internal beliefs. Your relationships echo your sense of worth. Your work mirrors your self-expression. Your finances reflect your inner trust in abundance or fear of lack. Even the way strangers treat you often reflects how you have learned to treat yourself. You are not being punished. You are being illuminated. That ache in your chest is not a divine burden, it's a call. That betrayal you endured is not a karmic slap, it's a mirror inviting you to release the story that says you are not safe to trust. That loss you carry is not proof of cosmic cruelty, it is life showing you that clinging is not the same as loving. You are not cursed. You are not forgotten. You are not being tested by some distant hand in the sky. You are being remembered by life itself. Life is a sacred teacher, not a cruel examiner. And every soul you meet, every event you endure, every challenge you face, they all carry one secret message, whispered beneath the noise. Come back. Come back to the truth of what you are. When you were born, you came into this world with no beliefs, no fears, no shame, no guilt, just awareness, just being, just light wrapped in form. And then slowly, unconsciously, you were taught how to see yourself. You were taught how to measure your worth. You were taught to fear rejection, to seek approval, to earn love. And as you adopted these beliefs, beliefs that were never yours to begin with, life began to reflect them. Not as punishment, but as guidance. Life is a faithful mirror. It cannot reflect what is not there. It simply shows you what you have chosen to carry. So, if the world feels heavy, it is time to put something down. If people continue to abandon you, it is time to stop abandoning yourself. If chaos surrounds you, it may be time to return to inner stillness. This is the great shift, the sacred inversion from believing that life is happening to you to realizing that life is happening through you. And when you awaken to this, everything softens. You stop fighting the waves and learn to float with them. You stop yelling at the mirror and begin to change the one who stands before it. And yet even this knowing is not a cause for self-blame. This is not about condemning yourself for the reality you've experienced. It is about awakening to your participation in the creation of it and claiming your power to choose again. You are not a victim of life. You are the very essence from which life emerges. You are the consciousness that calls it forth. You are the light that gives form to the formless. And the formless, that which we call God, does not sit above you with tests in hand. That formless is the field in which all things arise. It is not measuring your performance, it is dancing with your frequency. The divine is not grading you, it is responding to you. Not because it is emotional, not because it is personal, but because it is pure reflection. And that means this: if you want to change the world, you see, you must change the self you bring to the seeing. You cannot beg the mirror to smile unless you first smile yourself. You cannot scream at the water to become still unless you still your hand. You cannot demand love from a world that reflects your fear of being unlovable. The change does not begin with life. The change begins within you. This is the freedom the ego fears the most because it means there is no one else to blame. But it also means there is no one else in your way. You are the painter. You are the canvas. You are the brushstroke and the vision. And life is the gallery wall, displaying your inner masterpiece in every moment. So what do you believe about yourself? What do you believe you deserve? What do you believe God is? Because your answer to those questions will show up not just in your prayers, but in your patterns. Your patterns are your living theology. They show you what you really believe, not what you say you believe, but what your soul has come to accept as truth. And when you see that your life has been built upon beliefs that do not serve you, do not love you, do not honor your divine nature, that is not a moment for shame. That is a moment of rebirth. You can begin again not by trying to fix the reflection, but by loving the one who casts it. You do not need to control the world. You need only to come home to the part of you that believed it had to. The ego says, I must fix the outside so I can feel peace. The soul whispers, be peace, and the outside will reflect what I have become. This is not philosophy. This is physics of the soul. Consciousness creates reality. Emotion is energy in motion. What you radiate, you recreate. What you suppress, you attract. What you forgive, you free. What you bless, blesses you. And the great illusion of separation, the lie that says, I am here and God is somewhere else, that lie is the root of all suffering. Because the moment you believe you are separate from the divine, you begin to believe that life must be earned, that love must be proven, that suffering must be deserved. But none of that is true. You were born worthy. You were born whole. You were born light wrapped in flesh. And even though you forgot, even though you were taught otherwise, even though the world mirrored back a story of lack and fear, that light has never gone out. It cannot be taken. It cannot be tested. It can only be remembered. And life, beautiful, painful, miraculous life, is the great remembering. Each mirror you encounter, whether gentle or jagged, is a divine invitation. Will you recognize yourself in this? Will you reclaim the power you gave away? Will you love the part of you that forgot how lovable it truly is? This is not about denial. This is not about spiritual bypass. It is not about pretending pain is pleasant or that trauma is illusion. No, this is about facing all of it with the deepest truth in your heart. You are not being punished. You are being revealed. And the more you awaken to that, the more your life begins to reflect a higher truth, not the story of who you've been, but the radiance of who you truly are. When the clouds pass and the light returns, you do not accuse the sun of hiding from you. You understand it was always there, steady, unwavering, faithful, and so it is with your true self. You were never forsaken. You were never diminished in the eyes of the divine. You only stood in your own shadow. You only forgot to turn inward. The pain you carried was not proof of divine punishment. It was the loud knocking of suppressed truth, trying to be felt. The repeating heartbreaks were not signs of a cursed life. They were echoes of the same inner belief playing on loop, I am not enough. Not because it was ever true, but because it was learned. And what is learned can be unlearned. What is remembered can be rewritten. And what has been wounded can be witnessed back into wholeness. Life is not God's judgment. Life is your echo. It is your frequency and form. It is your self-talk made manifest. It is the invisible inner dialogue playing out on the stage of time and circumstance. And if that dialogue is built upon fear, unworthiness, guilt, and shame, then life must echo it because the mirror cannot lie. But if that inner dialogue begins to shift, begins to soften, begins to remember the truth that you are divine, that you are enough, that you are safe, then life too begins to shift. Not immediately, not all at once, but inevitably. For just as your reflection in water does not smile until you smile first, life cannot show you peace until you choose to carry it within. And oh, how often we have misunderstood this. How often we have begged the mirror to change. How often we have pleaded with life to give us a sign, to send us a break, to end the storm, not realizing that the storm outside is often the only way the soul can get our attention within. Because the soul is not interested in comfort, it is interested in truth. And truth, at first, can feel like fire. It burns away illusion. It scorches what was never real. It dismantles everything built on fear and calls you into the great vulnerability of surrender. But beyond the fire, there is clarity. Beyond the collapse, there is liberation. And beyond the breaking, there is a deeper blooming than you have ever known. You see, the tests you thought were from God were not tests at all. They were mirrors. They were messages. They were sacred whispers clothed in chaos. And all along, the question was not, will you pass this test? But will you finally see that nothing outside of you can define you? Not your failures, not your heartbreaks, not your trauma, not your achievements, not your titles, not your bank account, not even your pain. Because the divine never asks for your perfection, only for your presence. Not for your proof, only for your remembrance. Not for you to pass the test, only for you to see that the test was never real. There is no celestial scoreboard. There is no divine disappointment. There is only the unfolding of your own awakening, moment by moment, mirror by mirror, breath by breath. And what grace it is, what divine genius, that life is structured this way, that no matter how lost you feel, no matter how many times you forget, the world keeps reflecting exactly what is asking to be seen within you, so that nothing is wasted, so that even your darkest hour becomes a teacher, so that every mistake is just a doorway to deeper awareness. You are not broken, you are breaking open. You are not late. You are right on divine time. You are not being judged. You are being refined. And every person who has triggered you, every moment that has brought you to your knees, every painful mirror that has reflected back your fears, they were not there to condemn you. They were there to awaken you to your own false beliefs. Beliefs you no longer need to carry. And when you begin to see this, truly see it, something inside you begins to shift. You stop needing to defend. You stop needing to prove. You stop needing the world to be different so that you can feel safe. Because now, your safety does not come from the outer world, it comes from your inner alignment. Your peace no longer depends on who stays or who goes. Your joy no longer hinges on the outcome. Your worth no longer swings on the pendulum of external approval. You become rooted. You become spacious. You become still in a way that shakes the ground beneath old stories. And from that stillness, a new reflection begins to form. Life begins to echo back not your wounds, but your wisdom. Not your fear, but your faith. Not your ego, but your essence. And this is not magic, it is alignment. This is not superstition, it is spiritual law. You are the seed and the soil. You are the sun and the shadow. You are the one you have been waiting for. And the world, beautiful, shimmering, responsive world, is your canvas, your mirror, your sacred partner in awakening. It will not lie to you. It cannot. It will always reflect the vibration you carry. Not to hurt you, but to help you remember. To remember that God is not the author of your suffering. God is the light within you, calling you to rise above it. To remember that your life is not a punishment, it is a projection. To remember that the outer world is only ever showing you the state of your inner sanctuary. And when the sanctuary is cleansed, not with effort, but with awareness, not with striving, but with surrender, the world begins to transform with it. Because transformation does not begin with what you do. It begins with who you are being. And who you are underneath it all is divine. You came into this world radiant with divine light, not half of it, not a portion, not a fragment, but the fullness of it. Before you could speak a single word, you were the language of God made visible. Before you could grasp a single concept, you were the truth in motion. You had no idea of separation, no idea of lack. You didn't yet know what shame was, or judgment, or comparison. You simply existed unfiltered, unconditioned, untouched by identity. But then the world began to speak, and you listened. And in the listening, you began to forget. Not forget your name, but forget your nature. Not forget your goals, but forget your grace. Not forget the people around you, but forget the divine presence within you. You were taught rules, expectations, roles. You were told who to be, what to believe, how to act. And so you split. You became two selves. The true self that was eternal, and the outer self that sought to survive. The true self that only wanted to shine, and the outer self that learned to hide. And yet, life continued to reflect you. Not the soul you forgot, but the identity you became. Life began to mirror not the essence of your being, but the mask of your mind. It began to echo your beliefs, your wounds, your conditioned fear, because those were now the energies you were projecting. And here's the sacred paradox. Even that was not a mistake. Even your forgetting was part of the remembering. Even your pain was part of the purification. Even the false self you built was allowed to exist so that one day, in the face of its collapse, you could finally return to who you really are. This is the divine rhythm of awakening. Not a ladder to climb, not a test to pass, but a circle to complete. And in every moment, yes, even the hard ones, you are being called back to the center, not punished, not failed, but called. Called to return to the you that never needed to be fixed, only freed. You see, the mirror of life does not lie, but it also does not blame. It is neutral. It is sacred. It is wise. It gives you back exactly what you give it, so that you may know yourself more clearly, so that you may come home to the parts you abandoned, so that you may reclaim the wholeness that was never truly lost, only hidden. And the longer you chase external change without internal awakening, the more distorted the reflection becomes. It is like shouting at a pond to stop rippling, even as you continue to toss stones into it. You must change your vibration, not your circumstances. Your circumstances are just the echo. You must shift your consciousness, not force the outcome. The outcome is just the reflection. You must awaken to your true nature, not manipulate your environment. The environment is only your mirror. And this is why many spiritual seekers remain stuck. They try to use spirituality to manipulate life, to pass the test, to earn the prize, not realizing that there is no prize greater than presence, no reward more divine than remembering God is not holding the finish line. God is the wind in your lungs, the stillness in your spine, the eternal within the temporary. God is not testing your devotion. God is reflecting your belief in separation and waiting for you to remember there was never any distance at all. There is no out there. There is only you and the mirror, you, and the projection, you, and the infinite playground of your own awareness made visible through time and space, and what freedom lives in this knowing. Because now you don't have to wait for life to get better in order to feel whole. You don't have to wait for others to change in order to find peace. You don't have to control the future or fix the past or explain the pain. You need only return to the stillness. You need only drop beneath the story. You need only ask one sacred question. What is this showing me? And then listen not with fear, but with love. Because whatever arises, no matter how uncomfortable, is not there to destroy you. It is there to show you where love was left out and where it is now ready to return. That is all healing is. The return of love to the places it was once denied. And life, your divine companion, will keep bringing you back to those places again and again, not as punishment, but as sacred opportunity. Opportunity to choose again, to love again, to be again, to see not just the reflection, but the light that creates it. And when you see clearly, you no longer fight with life, you dance with it. You respond instead of react. You bless instead of curse. You learn to thank even the discomfort because you know it is carrying a message, not a judgment. And that message is always this: come home. Come home to your power. Come home to your peace. Come home to the divine in you. Not because you passed the test, but because there was never a test to pass. Only a light to remember. Only a truth to reclaim. Only a self to reawaken. The mirrors you fear are often the ones most ripe with grace. That angry person, that harsh experience, that moment that cracked your heart wide open, they are not detours. They are awakenings, dressed in the garb of discomfort. They are not there to punish, but to peel away the layers of who you never were. They are invitations back to the center of your being, the divine still point beneath all suffering. The stillness where you do not need to prove or earn or beg. The stillness where you are enough, not because you finally succeeded, but because you finally stopped pretending. All this time, the reflection you called life was never trying to defeat you. It was trying to wake you up. Wake you up from the trance of forgetting, from the story of separation, from the illusion that you are anything less than sacred. And yes, some mirrors were painful. Some people arrived as storms, shaking the very ground you stood on. Some moments shattered the illusions you clung to. But even these, especially these, carried the fingerprints of grace. For it is often through our breaking that the light most clearly enters. And it is often through the mess of our becoming that the miracle is born. You were never asked to pass a test. You were asked to see what within you still believes in separation, to see where you've withheld love from yourself, from others, from this moment, to see where you have clung to the identity of the one who must suffer, and then to release it, to drop it like old skin, to surrender it, not in weakness, but in radiant trust, the kind of trust that comes when you finally understand there was never anything wrong with you. There was never a reason to be tested. There was only a forgetting. And now there is a remembering. You are not a student under judgment. You are a soul returning home. And home is not a place you arrive at after proving your worth. Home is the space you discover when you finally lay your burdens down and remember you were never separate. You were never alone. You were never unworthy. You were never forsaken. The storms you passed through were not cosmic punishments. They were reflections of your inner weather. They were the outward echoes of forgotten pain. But even in the storm, the light never left you. Even in your lowest moments, the mirror remained faithful, unblinking, honest. And now, perhaps for the first time, you can look into that mirror and no longer see shame. Now, you can see God not as someone above you, but as the light behind your eyes. Now, you can see life not as a test to be endured, but as a masterpiece in the making. Now, you can meet your reflection and say, I remember. I remember that I am not this ego, not this fear, not this history. I am not my failures. I am not my patterns. I am not my trauma. I am the awareness that watches it all. I am the light beneath the story. I am the divine, made visible for a little while, learning how to love again. And this is what life has been reflecting all along the journey, not toward perfection, but toward presence. You do not need to win your life. You need only to return to it, to live it fully, to see clearly, to love bravely, to forgive relentlessly, to shed the illusion of being tested and step into the truth of being revealed. And when you do, the reflection changes, not because the mirror has power, but because you remembered the one who does. When you stop waiting to be worthy, life stops reflecting unworthiness. When you stop clinging to pain, life stops offering lessons in suffering. When you stop asking why it's so hard and start asking what within you is calling to be healed, the path softens. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. And in your change, the mirror shifts. In your surrender, the storm clears. In your return, the illusion dissolves. There is nothing more to prove. There is nothing more to earn. There is only this breath, this sacred, miraculous breath. And in this breath, God is not far. God is not testing. God is here. God is the witness, the breath, the space, the spark. God is not handing out suffering. God is holding you in love, even when you forget what love feels like. And when you begin to live from that truth, when you stop seeing yourself as the tested and begin living as the presence behind the mirror, you become a walking reflection of grace. Not because you finally passed, but because you finally saw that there was never a test. There was only a path back to wholeness. And now the path is open. The walls are gone. The story is burning gently at your feet. And in its place, stillness, radiance, the quiet knowing that you are free. Free to let go, free to walk in love, free to see the world not as a battle, but as a blessing. Free to meet every moment, not as a threat, but as a mirror of your inner light. And oh, how that light shines now. Not because it is new, but because it is remembered. And when light is remembered, everything changes. The mirror reflects joy. The world reflects peace. Life becomes what it always was underneath the fear, a sacred echo of your own divinity. And so you rise, not because you finally earned it, but because you finally stopped dimming the truth. You rise in the fullness of your presence. You rise in the beauty of your surrender. You rise in the knowing that nothing was ever missing, only misunderstood. And now the misunderstanding is over. You see clearly. You walk gently. You live awake. You are not being tested. You are being reflected. And now, at last, you reflect love. And in the still hush of that final realization, the soul rests, not in victory, not in performance, but in peace. The soft thunder of truth echoes across your being. And in the silence that follows, you are free.